Hello! I found an old picture of our classroom, so we're meeting in the classroom today. This excites me, people. Just go with it. I'm going to read some more of Erec Rex, page 225 we left off on. And if you remember, Eric was talking to Aquas. Okay, so he stumbled up at his cave. So I'll back up just a smidge so we've got that. Page 225 this starts on. So if you haven't watched the videos up to 225, I suggest you do that or it won't make sense. All right, sit down on our carpet area, people. Yeah. Okay. All right. I've been trying to find my brother and sister. They've been kidnapped. I think they're in Lerna and will be fed to monsters unless I get there fast enough to save them. Aquas nodded. So a Cyclops has been helping me, and we were looking for Lerna, but we found this little village. The people there knew a secret, and I tricked him out of them with magic. They told me where the baby dragons are. I found out Biscania captured them to harvest their eyes. The hatchlings are old enough now, and their eyes are ready for him to take. The trolls are hiding the hatchlings for him in Trollbottom Cave in Jotner. Biscania is going to kill them all 2 days after the monster bash in Lerna. We ran as fast as we could to tell you. Aquas breathed out steam in silence. Erec Rex, you are like your father. They sat a while looking at each other. Thank you. Unfortunately, most of the dragons are out on hunt, looking for signs of the hatchlings. I would be out too, but I haven't been well. There's likely nobody here but me, and we don't have time to hunt other dragons down. We should act now. Am I correct to assume you will help me? I will. Eric's mind spun. He wasn't sure what good he could do. He wasn't nearly as powerful as Aquas. But then he thought about Danny and Sammy. If I help you free the baby dragons tonight, will you help me fight the monsters in Lerna tomorrow? It would be my pleasure. Steam poured from his nostrils. Henry fell backward in shock when Aquas emerged from the cave. Jam looked frozen, mouth agape. Aquas nodded at them and then said to Eric, "Oh, I almost forgot your riddle. Let's see, I don't really have time to help you, so I'll give you the simplest one I can think of. Please consider it well and do your best. I would really hate to have to eat you, given what we are setting out to do." At the mention of eating Eric, Henry fainted into the grass. Jam rushed over and fanned his face. Henry's eyes slowly opened, looked at the dragon, then slammed back shut. Okay. Aqua sat on a large rock and extended his jointed wings fully. They glistened a deep velvety black. Who thought he was one thing and found out he was another, received a dragon eye, then went to save baby dragons, and used to look different until his mother changed his appearance? Eric was afraid to answer, even though it seemed obvious. If he was wrong for any reason, would Aquas really eat him? Jam piped up. Why, young sir, he must be talking about you. Aquas nodded. I'll accept that as a correct answer. Eric sighed in relief. Everything would be fine now. They would save the baby dragons and rescue Danny and Sammy, all with Aquas' help. There would be no more worries about how to deal with the terrible monsters and otherness with a powerful dragon on his side. Do you know where Trollbottom Cave is in Jotner? Yes, Jotner is right next to Lerna. Aquas pawed the ground. I'll be able to take 2 of you on my back there now, preferably the smaller 2. Henry looked immensely relieved. We'd better leave now. Aquas lowered his head to the ground so Eric and Jam could climb onto his back. Eric asked, Will you be okay, Henry? Oh, no problem here, Henry bellowed. I'll follow me tracks back to Polyphemus real easy. You go run along then, Aquas said, and if I find anything missing from my cave, I will track you down. Henry took off at a run. I'm going now. See, far away from your cave. I'll sleep under a tree. Oh, fine then, Aquas sighed. He turned to Eric. Just wait here. Aquas grabbed a shocked Henry in his talons and flew off the ground. Henry turned white. I'll take this one to Polyphemus so he won't have to sleep under a tree. Right back, kids. Eric told Jam what Aquas had said. Jam frowned. I wonder why he's not feeling well. Eric shrugged. He looks okay to me. In minutes, Aquas appeared empty-handed. He lowered his head to the ground. Now climb on. Eric stepped onto the dragon's wide head, holding his horns. Then, holding one spine at a time and stepping on others, he scaled the steep climb onto the dragon's back. Jam followed him up and sat behind Eric, and the 2 of them squeezed behind Aqua's spines and held on tight. Aquas lifted his head. You do both understand that this is highly irregular, don't you? I wouldn't normally be caught dead doing this. In a wondrous arch of his back and swipe of his wings, they lifted off the ground. Erec stared at the ground below him, amazed. He could not believe he was riding a dragon. The earth dropped below them, and they climbed through the air like a balloon that was finally let loose, like a shooting star. Trees sunk lower until they disappeared into a swirl of the night sky. It seemed almost as if Erec was the dragon himself, a part of that immense, beautiful creature he was riding. He gripped on to the spine before him for dear life. Behind him, he heard Jam say, "Oh, sir, it's so beautiful." Clouds brushed by them, then shot downward as Aquas climbed higher than Erec thought possible. It almost seemed as if he was heading straight for orbit. The full moon glistened bright before Erec's eyes, sparkling in more patterns and colors than Erec thought possible. It was as if its face radiated pure goodness into the atmosphere of the earth, and there was nobody else but them to feel and see it. Then, in a moment, the dragon turned and dove, spiraling downward in a controlled freefall. Erec closed his eyes, then pried them open, not wanting to miss a thing. He held Aqua's spine so tight his hands went numb. Clouds swept past them, and the ground rose up so quickly that Erec felt sure they would crash straight into it. But Aquas climbed upward again, and then settled back down for a smooth landing. He put his head down, and Erec and Jam climbed off. They were on a grassy knoll in a small clearing in the woodlands. The dragon's wings sagged, and he panted a little. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't be tired this easily. I haven't been myself lately." "What's wrong?" Erec asked. "Oh, just 500 years of wear and tear. It shouldn't be so bad if I hadn't lost my dear Nilra 100 years ago. That changed everything, you know." Erec looked around. "Is the cave near here?" Aquas nodded. "A short walk. When I flew over it, I saw 2 trolls guarding it in front. No surprise, really. We better see what's happening there before we decide what to do." Erec was surprised the dragon did not want to burst into the cave, flames flying, and rescue the hatchlings right away. Maybe 500 years had snuffed his fire a bit, or maybe he really wasn't feeling well enough. Erec tried not to think about that. Around a hillside was a cave, very different from the rocky one in which Aquas lived. It was more of a deep pit in a grassy hill that looked like it went straight downward. Aquas was right. 2 unusual-looking men stood before the pit opening. Very unusual men. One of the men had 3 heads crammed next to each other on short, tough necks. The head on the left had wild black hair sprouting in all directions and an equally dizzying beard. The head in the middle was clean-shaven and bald with gruff features and a single thick eyebrow. The third head had delicate features and green hair sticking straight up. Erec thought he looked slightly out of place. The other men looked more normal, except that he had white spiky hair and was carrying another head under his arm that joined in the conversation. Both men were huge, thick, and looked like cavemen in their filthy, sleeveless cloth tunics. "Are those trolls?" Erec whispered. Aquas nodded and steam rolled into the night. "They'll do anything for a pocket of gold. It's their weakness." Erec thought about it. "What do they spend it on?" "They just hoard it. Not that there's anything wrong with that, of course." Erec thought the piles of treasure in Aqua's den would put any troll to shame. "But one must have values, you know, rules, ideals. Trolls have none of those things. They'd sell their grandmother for something shiny." The 2 trolls, with 5 heads between them, were having a great time yelling and arguing with each other. Erec could hear the one with green spiked hair growling. "It's 3 o'clock. Time to take them out for their exercise." "Shut up," said the bald head. "You don't know how to relax." "Yeah?" The first one turned to fully face the bald one, a fierce look on his face. "You don't know how to relax, you lazy bum. Always making us sit on our duffs, lounging around." The bald one looked pleased and spit at the first one. "It's not my fault. It's our body listens to me when we have disagreements. I just have the best suggestions, that's all." "The laziest suggestions." The first head bit his ear. "Can't you 2 ever shut up?" the hairy head roared. "I can't get a moment's silence here." He turned to commiserate with the head being held in the other troll's arm. Jam whispered, 3 in the morning doesn't seem a nice time to exercise the hatchlings." "It's not," Aqua said, "but trolls can't be out in the sunlight or they turn into stone. Plus, this gives them more protection from the hatchlings being seen." "So," Erec said, "in the daylight they won't be guarded?" "Oh, they will be all right, just from the inside of the cave, not in the sunlight. The trolls will be in there sleeping near them all day, but they wake up in a flash, don't doubt that." The troll, holding the head, began to toss it up and down, much to the amusement of the other heads. "Cut it out! Leave me alone!" The hairy head growled. "It won't be long before we get paid, and we'll be done with this smarmy job. Standing here with the likes of yous. But we better do it right, the green-haired had offered, or the Shadow Prince will put us all out of our misery for good. Suddenly, Erec felt sick. His stomach clenched, and he was overcome with dizziness. In a flash, everything was green. It looked like daytime. Huge webs of substance hung around him. He waited with dread to see a preview of what would happen to him. Something in Trollbottom Cave with the trolls? A fight with the monsters in Lerna? There was no fighting, no trolls, nothing at all. Only green and the substance. And it was closing in, zooming up to him. It was like the nothingness around him was growing and swelling until it swallowed him up. He felt fainter, lighter, as if his very life was seeping out of him. And then it was over. He was back in the night by Trollbottom Cave. He wiped sweat off his brow. Jam looked concerned. Is young sir all right? Should I find a tonic in the woods? I'm okay, Jam. Erec did not want to think about what this premonition of his next cloudy thought might mean. This time he had actually felt his life leaving him and had felt powerless to do anything about it. Aquas watched Erec. You are learning to use your eye, I see. Learning to use it? Erec was not sure he would call it that. More like it's using me. Well, let it for now. Later you will find out how to make my eye work for you. Erec had almost forgotten it was Aqua's eye. But as you see, a dragon eye can look into the future. You can see into the future, sir? Jam asked. Yes, Aquas and Erec answered at the same time. Erec laughed. Only at times for me, and not too well. I can also see the future, but it's a bit more controlled. It is actually not some... Oh, I'm sorry, this is Aquas talking. I can also see the future, but it's a bit more controlled. It is actually not something we dragons do much. If you were able to read your future at a glance, you would understand too. You enjoy things less when you are always trying to control things instead of just living. Like my dear Nilra dying. I might have been able to prevent it, who knows? But had we spent our time together avoiding death, we would not have truly lived and loved. The time we did have would have been lessened. Oh, a few dragons do that, I guess, but they're not generally happy. Most of us save looking into the future for more important matters. Jam looked confused. The future you see is not set in stone, then? You can change it? Yes, said Aquas. It is the future that will happen naturally unless I knowingly alter it. I am given that choice. Isn't this important enough to look into the future? Erec asked. The lives of all the baby dragons are on the line. I think you are right, Erec. A few dragons have tried to see the future to tell where the hatchlings were, but could not do it. Maybe it was too far in time then. But we are about to save them now. I will look to see if our rescue will work, and if I must change things, then I will. Pardon me a moment. He rested his head on the grass. Soon a green light beamed from his eye, shining on the plants and trees ahead of him like an unearthly beacon. The dragon held so still Erec wondered if he was breathing. Then at once he exhaled, and his eyes shut. Aquas shook, rumbling as if an earthquake was erupting inside of him. Erec and Jam stared. Was he okay? Had this hurt him somehow? The dragon sniffed and raised his head. He looked calmly at Erec. I'm all right now. I'm ready to proceed with this. What did you see? No, it's enough that I have seen. There's no reason to discuss it further. Well, can you tell me at least if Danny and Sammy will be okay? No, I cannot. Aqua seemed resolute, so Erec reassured himself that at least somehow he knew what to do. Erec was tired. What now? Should we break the hatchlings free? We watch them. They'll be brought out for exercise soon, then we'll make our plan. Erec wondered why they didn't make a plan now, as Aquas knew what would happen. Soon the trolls entered the cave and came out heading a horde of dragon hatchlings in metal collars attached to a long chain. There must have been 50 of them, scales of all colors glistening in the moonlight. They yipped and squeaked, stumbling over each other and flapping their small black wings. One or two lifted a bit off the ground before the chain pulled them back down. They were so cute, Erec felt his heart melt. He wanted to save them now, if only he had a clue how. Why don't you breathe fire on the trolls, Aquas? We'll free them right now. I can't, Erec. I'm running out of energy, and I need to save it all for something I will have to do. Just watch and think of another way to save them. This was not what Erec wanted to hear. The dragons tried to frolic as much as they could on their chain, running around in the grass and crashing into one another. One of the little things was upside down in its collar, its feet sticking up out of the grass. Erec resisted the urge to run over and set it upright. The trolls took little interest in the dragons, their many heads arguing and laughing at each other. Erec noticed a flask hanging off of the belt of the three-headed troll. What do you think that is? He said. Ah, I've heard that trolls carry a magic flask of spinacia plasma to make them strong enough to lift huge loads. Is that true? If I wasn't so tired, I could get rid of those trolls right now. I'm afraid I'll have to rest. As I said, it's important that I save my energy for later. But you can steal into the cave when the trolls are asleep and rescue the dragons. I can't tell you how you do it, since I could only see the future from my perspective. I was not able to see what you did in there, but I know you can do it. May I go with young sir to help? You go too. But for now, both of you need sleep. Erec was glad to lie on the grass near Aquas. He could barely hold his eyes open. Jam awoke Erec as the trolls walked back into the cave entrance. Well, said... Oh, I'm sorry, this is a troll. Well, said the head that was not attached to a body. Only one more night of this and we'll get our gold chunks. None too soon, the other yawned. Time to head in now. I see a hint of color. The sun will be up soon. They climbed into the cave, pulling a chain attached to a huge boulder, which then slammed into the cave entrance, closing it. It didn't seem possible to get into the cave now, but Aquas had sounded confident that they would. Dawn arose, and the golden sun gleamed off of Aqua's scales. Erec stared at the cave, heart sinking. It was bad enough having to rescue the baby dragons himself, but when he thought about fighting the ferocious monsters in Lerna in 2 days, it was overwhelming. I wish Henry was still with us. We could use all the help we can get with the monsters. If only there was some way I could contact him. You could send him snail mail, Jem said. Don't you have an envelope in your pocket? Erec pulled out the shell envelope from Tina's last letter. I don't know how to make it go where I want. Won't it just go back to Tina? Jem pulled paper and a pen out of his coat, prepared for everything as usual. The snail will know what to do. It can find anyone when they're outside. Erec wrote, Henry, thank you so much for all your help. I could not have found out about the baby dragons and gotten out here near Lerna without you. Tomorrow, we need to fight the terrible monsters that are coming to attack the citizens of Lerna. I wonder if you are able to help us in any way. If you could come here, that would be great. Or if it's too hard, I understand. Anyway, thanks again for everything, Erec Rex. He put the letter in the shell, told it to find the Cyclops Henry and Polyphemus, and watched it vanish into the soil. Jem disappeared into the woods and came back with a silver tray full of fruits, berries, and edible leaves. He handed a cluster to Aquas. It's good for just about everything, even for dragons. Aquas thanked him and munched his leaves. Not bad. Needs a little hippo meat to go with it. Look what I found, young sir. Jam waved a cluster of leaves with excitement. This is a dream herb. A little of this will help us move like we're in a dream. It may keep us from being noticed as easily. Erec thought about the size of the trolls, and he hoped so. Okay, so just finished on page 235. So the next time I read, I will start on page 236, called A Hole in the Substance, chapter 18. I hope you enjoyed being back in the classroom with me. We can pretend. Just a quick note, if you watched all the way to the end, a reminder that I've talked to Mrs. Eilers, I've talked to Ms. Perone. Deadlines are flexible. We don't want you stressing out. I know I'm hearing that a lot is being kind of thrown at you guys, and this is something to adjust to. So please know that when you're struggling, you can email us with any questions, or if you need more time, we're very flexible, okay? Have a wonderful day. Get outside. Unless it's really late and you're watching this, then don't. But you know what I mean. All right, take care.